So I hope everyone is doing well. This week's video is a little bit different. Never actually planned on, making a video on this topic before. Sort of kind of stumbled into this over the last few weeks, but nevertheless, it's something that I found highly beneficial for my own post-processing. I'm hoping it might be helpful for others as well. So over the past maybe 2 or 3 weeks now, I had posted 2 particular photos on Instagram and Twitter that both contained a specific element that I really struggled with from a post-processing perspective. And I asked for feedback. And the response I received was it was incredible. Almost 1,000 comments back as to other people's decisions, what they would do with that particular object in question if they were post-processing these images. And if you were one of those responders, I really do appreciate it. It taught me a lot, so thank you for that. And I read through every single one of these comments. And it taught me so much about the overall decisioning process related to this topic. And the 3, options that were on the table were to either A, keep the item, B, remove the item totally for the photograph, or C, move the item to a different area of the photo. And I went in and kind of tallied up all the votes, and I grouped kind of similar comments into buckets, really in an effort to create kind of a quick summary of the results from basically polling almost 1,000 people as to what they would do in this particular situation, in hopes that this information would be beneficial to others in the future. And that's really the topic of this week's video, is to discuss whether or not you should remove certain items from your photograph or move them to a different area of your image, or just keep it where it was when you actually photographed the image. It's a very common occurrence in all genres of photography. In portrait photography, it's not uncommon to have your model's hair, a little bit out of alignment, have like a stray hair here or there when you're post-processing the photograph, and you notice it and you want to remove it and kind of clean things up a little bit. And especially in landscape photography, it happens all the time where you have small twigs or branches or sticks or little stones in the foreground. It looks a little bit messy, a little unorganized, and you want to kind of go in and just kind of tidy things up a little bit. Go in there and just kind of remove a couple things. So this is definitely a very real occurrence. It happens all the time, and it's not always easy to be able to identify what should be removed versus what should stay where it is. And that's the question that I hope to answer in this video. It's definitely a gray area, but I'm going to do my best to answer it. So this is the very first image right here. This is from my recent trip to Arizona. I shot this with my 100 to 400 millimeter lens. These mountains in the background were very far away from me. Definitely quite a few miles. I was perched on kind of like a hill quite a ways away, and it's always hard to come up with good foreground when you're using a telephoto lens, but I like the subtle bit of interest through the foreground here. And of course I love the color in the sky and the light on the mountains in the background. And I'm sure you have already figured out what the object in question is, and it's this house right here. And there was probably one of the more common requests, I should say, in the comments, was to see this image with the house completely removed from the photograph, and to also see this image with the house moved to a different area of the photograph. Both options, which I'll show you here in a second. But I do want to first kind of review the overall results and the comments as to why people chose that. So as far as the people that were in the camp of keeping the house where it is, the most common reasonings for that were: keep the house because it adds scale to the photograph. Keep it there because it creates story. Keep the house because it's really there in real life. It adds perspective to the overall photograph, and it creates additional interest for the image. Now, for those that were in the boat of removing the house from the photograph, it competes for the subject, so it should be removed. The house is distracting. If you plan on printing this image, you should definitely remove the house. The house is a visual stop sign. And for those that are in the boat of actually moving the house to somewhere else, the common answers were: it should be moved because it's too close to the edge. It should have been in a horizontal crop and not a vertical crop. The house draws the eye out of the frame. And I really agree with all of those. I agree with every single one of those comments. And the most popular answer was to actually keep the house where it is, but not by much. The second place finisher was definitely to remove it altogether. And the reason I kept the house here mainly is because of the lights on the house. If the lights were not on this house, I probably would have removed it. But those lights for me create a story in my own mind. And the storytelling ability of photographs is one of the most powerful things of photography for me personally. You know, photographs, they don't have any words, there's no written words, there's no music associated with it. All you have is this two-dimensional object to tell a story. And those lights, to me, every time I look at this image, I think about whoever is lucky enough to live in that house and to kind of wake up every single morning and drink their coffee. And I envision the back of their house being floor-to-ceiling windows. And they're just standing there drinking their coffee and looking at these mountains in the background with this amazing sunrise occurring. And I keep thinking, who is lucky enough to have this scene unfolding in front of in their backyard every single day? And every time I look at this image, I replay the same story in my mind. And I know it sounds a little bit weird, but that house creates story for me. And that's why I left it. I probably would shift it over a little bit. So let me go ahead and we'll show the differences. So let me create another layer here. Let's call this remove. So I'm going to come up here with the patch tool, draw a quick selection around the house, come up to edit, fill, content aware fill, and the house will be gone. And if we toggle this on and off, so this is the way it was originally, and this is with no house, with the house, and with no house. Let's create one more layer here, and let's name this one, whoops, we'll name this layer move. And I'm going to come up here to content aware move tool, draw another selection around the house. I'm doing this really rough. And we'll just shift it over to the right. That was the most common answer as to where to place the house. And it will be moved here shortly. So here it is with the house shifted to the right a little bit more away from the edge. And this is the way it is originally. That's with it moved and originally. And then this is with the house completely removed. And I'm really curious what you think now that you were able to see all the different options with the house completely removed from the photograph and with the house shifted over a little bit, what you actually think is the best image as far as the final outcome for this photograph. Now the next photograph up here, this is my favorite image from this past fall. This is from the Oregon coast, or not the Oregon coast, it's from the state of Oregon. And when you first look at this photograph, it's not immediately obvious as to what the object in question is, but the object in question is this little leaf right here. And the reason I know it's not obvious is because there was so many comments that people said, you know, Mark, I didn't even notice that leaf until you mentioned it. And ever since you mentioned it, I can't stop looking at it. And that was very interesting. But the most common answers were in the camp to keep the actual leaf where it is the leaf actually adds story to the photograph. It makes the overall photo unique to you. The leaf holds your gaze longer. It adds realness to the photograph. It's not that quote-unquote perfect image. The leaf breaks up the large dark area of the rocks. Now, for those that are in the camp of actually removing the leaf from the overall photograph, the common answers were the leaf takes away from the mossy rocks in the foreground. The leaf makes it more clean, or I should say, removing the leaf will make it more clean without it. The leaf looks like it was placed there, so it should be removed. The leaf is distracting. It stops the eye. This is that visual flow again. The leaf, if you remove it, will connect the mossy rocks to the waterfall. Or said differently, if you remove the leaf from the rocks in the foreground, the rocks with the moss will connect to the waterfall a little bit better. And I do agree with that too. And for those that were in the camp of actually moving it, there wasn't a whole lot of these, but some people said that the leaf should be moved to the other side of the rocks. Or the leaf should be actually duplicated and add more leaves all over the rocks. And then there was some questions or some statements that said that the brown spots on the leaf should be cleaned up a little bit just to make it look like a little bit more of a clean autumn leaf. And the most popular answer was to actually remove the leaf from this one, which I found very interesting. And the reason that I kept the leaf is because, once again, it told a story. And the story for me was that leaf was the very first thing that caught my eye. That's what draws my eye to the mossy rocks in the foreground. And it tells the story of an autumn day. I can instantly tell that this image was shot during the fall. And if you remove it, there are, of course, autumn leaves on the left side, and there is some nice light hitting these leaves. So you can still tell that it's an autumn scene. But that leaf right there on the rocks really tells me instantly that it is an image that's captured during the fall. And something that I didn't realize is that that leaf was actually blown onto that rock. It was a rather blustery afternoon. But there was a lot of comments that people said, you know, Mark, is that leaf stuck to the rock, or was it actually falling and you just happened to capture it in midair? It was actually stuck to the rock. And in my mind, I was thinking that, and mainly because I was there taking the photograph, that leaf represents a blustery autumn afternoon with leaves blowing around, and this leaf actually blew to the side of this rock. And that's something that it kind of made the image a little bit more interesting to me. And that's why I kept it. So let's go ahead and remove it. Duplicate the layer. I'm going to come up here to the patch tool again, and we're just going to draw a real quick kind of outline around the leaf here. And then I'm going to come up to Edit, Fill, Content Aware Fill, and the leaf is gone. And we'll name this layer Remove. So this is the image. Let me take that away. With the leaf there, originally as I posted it, and this is with it gone. That's a real rough removal of the image of the leaf. I would definitely clean it up a little bit more if I was going to make it permanent, but it definitely helps you get kind of the general idea of what the image would look like without the leaf. And then if we decided to actually move the leaf, although I'm not really sure how well this will work, title this layer Move. Let's come up here to Content Aware Move tool, draw another selection around the leaf, and let's just maybe move it, let's say kind of over here, or maybe over here somewhere. Hit the check mark and just see how that looks. I don't think it's going to look too great, but it gives you once again an idea of what the leaf might look like if it was shifted over. That looks pretty unnatural though. So for me, really the only option is to actually leave it the way it was, or to remove the leaf altogether. So that's how it is originally, and that is how it looks with the leaf gone. So, and once again, definitely let me know in the comments below if you like the leaf there or if you don't like the leaf there. I'm very curious as to what the final result will be now that you've been able to actually see what the image would look like in both different scenarios, and the same thing with the house scenario as well. So I hope you were able to get some helpful information out of this video. I know it definitely helped me to kind of think about different things in the future when I'm faced with a decision like this, because it happens all the time in landscape photography where there's certain elements of your scene where maybe you liked it when you were on location, and then in post-processing you don't like it as much anymore, or maybe you never even noticed it when you were on location and you're noticing it now in the post-processing process. And you're faced with a decision: does this element add to my photograph or does it detract from my image? So I'm hoping you can take some of the information from this week's video and kind of apply it to that thought process moving forward. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below. I guarantee I will get back in touch with you. And if you enjoyed this week's video, if you could give it that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, and hit that notification bell as well. Just that way you're notified the next time I do upload. And most importantly, as always, I really do appreciate you watching this week's video, and I will see you all next week. Bye.